When God wants to make a man power, he shreds him into pieces first. Never forget, it's a process with God. Without pain, there would be no growth. So accept the pain. Embrace the pain. Because God is there to ask you, do you really want to achieve your goals? And when you start walking with God, people will stop walking with you. Not because they don't like you, but because you're about to sacrifice things they're not willing to sacrifice. And when God takes you to deep waters, not everyone will be able to swim with you. However, do not confuse movement with progress, because you can run in place but not get anything done. I want you to take a moment and think. Are you moving forward? Who are you taking with? And how are you making things better by God's given power?
Welcome, everyone, to the Rejoice Christian Eagles Coaches Show, coming to you live. As you can see, we're not at B-Dubs tonight. We're at the Gathering on Main Street in downtown Owasso, America. And the festivities have just got started. Great crowd down here tonight. Live music, food trucks, vendors.
Weather?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Come on down and take advantage of it. A great place to come and with family. Bring your family down. Good evening. I'm Bill Bush, along with my wingman, Mark Kirk, and head coach of the Eagles, Brent Marley. And tonight's guest, I guess, whatever you say, what do you want to call it? But our guest coach, but sometimes it's not a coach.
Invitee.
Yeah, Chance Riley, the new offensive line coach. And we're here in the Rejoice Christian Schools booth. So come on down. Marsha's probably got some stuff that she can hand out to you along with the other ladies. But before we get started, what we like to do is kind of get to know Coach Riley a little bit. And so, first of all, welcome, Coach, to the show. And Coach Marley told us a little bit about you at our last coaches show last week. But if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself, some of your coaching background, your family, and what brought you to Rejoice.
Well, first of all, I'm from right up the road here in Collinsville. Grew up in Collinsville, went there to school there my whole life. When I got done with there, I went to Pittsburgh State, played football there.
A gorilla.
I'm a gorilla, that's right, Gorilla Nation. But, yeah, went to school there, decided to make a career out of that. Was there for 6 years due to a red shirt and an injury. And I didn't come away with a doctorate.
A lifer.
Didn't come away with a doctorate degree. But after that, I was lucky enough to get on at a Union High School. At the time, Coach Fred was adding some people to his staff, and I was lucky enough to get on and had a first couple years I was kind of the JV O-line coach and helped out a little bit with varsity, doing mostly the grunt work there. And after a couple years with that, I really had a desire to try the whole college thing out. And so as far as coaching in college, and Coach Beck was still at Pittsburgh State at the time, and I called him and told him I was interested in being a grad assistant. And I thought at the time, worst case scenario, I get my master's paid for, and I have that moving forward. And went there, enjoyed that. It was awesome. And I have a big place in my heart for Pittsburgh State, so it was really, really cool experience. While I was there, right before we went there, I got married to my wife, Savannah, and while we were there, I had a little girl named Chapel, our oldest. And so after that 2-year stint was up, we had a lot of grandparents telling us we needed to get our butts back home. So
funny how that works.
Yeah. And it worked out well because the O-line coach that was at Union came to Owasso. So that job came open, and I went right back to Union and spent the next 4 years there. At that time in my life, I wanted to be a head football coach. So after the 4 years of being the O-line coach there, I decided it was probably a good time to go ahead and try to get a coordinator job. So in 2021, I took the Sapulpa offensive coordinator job, an O-line job. Enjoyed that, really enjoyed it. It was a great experience. But then, I was gone a lot, and we had 2 more kids. Now we have 3. So I was gone. I was driving from Collinsville to Sapulpa every day, and it was just tough. And I had a good opportunity in real estate, and so jumped on that. And I had some other businesses that my family had ran at the time, so I knew I could, kind of supplement that income while I tried to get real estate going. Did that, but I knew I'm a football coach. So I was just waiting for the right opportunity, and in the meantime, I was able to start a roofing company that kind of tie in with our heat and air company. And so I knew at that point, my plans had changed. I didn't want to be a head coach anymore. I just wanted to go coach the O-line and help with the run game and coach the big boys up front and just be a part of it again. And had some opportunities, and none of them felt right. And then Coach Marley called me, said he wanted to talk, and so I went and talked to him, and it seemed like a no-brainer. My kids are there in the elementary school, and it was a chance for me to be a part of the program where my kids are going to be. And so that was a difference versus other opportunities I'd had. And I'm extremely excited to be there.
Well, we're glad to have you, and like I say, I think you'll find out real quick. You're already somewhat familiar with Rejoice with your kids,
right.
But I'm telling you, there's just, to me, been around sports, so has Mark, pretty much my entire life, and there's just not another organization like it. There's
right.
just not another, especially sports organization, but just overall, the people, it's just tremendous, and what they feed into these young people. It's just, it's something that you wish everybody could be a part of. But,
exactly. It's a great organization, and then you cap on top of that, like the icing on the cake is the facilities.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Having these facilities for this size school is just unheard of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being on that first Friday night last week, being back in it, that was a great feeling.
Just felt like this is where I'm supposed to be.
I missed that feeling.
Well, you could be going to a real estate closing somewhere.
Yeah,
but
it's not quite the same. I love it, but it's not quite the same. Didn't get the juices going quite
exactly.
the same. So.
Exactly.
You were going to say something, Coach?
Well, I was going to say that he's been such a blessing. Like, as far as it's sometimes it's hard to find. It's really hard to find coaches that are quality with the experience. So really, what we have to do. And I think it's the right thing to do is you got to find integrity. You got to find the spiritual values that match our school and our mission first. And then, sometimes you have to just get by with what you've got with that. If that's there, that's the most important thing. But then maybe experience is maybe a little lacking or whatever. Well, with Chance, it was the complete package. It was a no-brainer. When we got done with that first meeting, I was trying to hold back, letting on how much
I want this guy so bad.
I want him to think, I don't know if he really, I don't know.
We'll let you know.
Got it or not.
Should I call him? It's only been 5 minutes.
Some other guys coming in, and I'll get back with you, So anyway.
I'll remember that next time we don't get a 3rd and 1.
We got a question for him already.
Oh, yeah.
Coach Riley, when your brother left OU and went to USC, did you take it as hard as all the other Sooner fans did?
Well, first of all, I'm going to clear things up, because if you say that around Oklahoma, you're going to put me in a lot of trouble. There is no relation to Lincoln Riley and me. So, yeah.
We think we know who this came. Oh, Casey Willis. Yeah. Obviously, Casey. Coach Marley, well, and like I say, welcome to the family. It's always nice to open the season with a win, obviously, as the Eagles opened up the 2024 season with the W. The Eagles got off to a fast start and really never looked back, dispatching the Noah Jaguars 55-20. And, Coach, even though you had a scrimmage week before, it's just not quite the same as real live action and getting those guys in the pressure game situation and how the chemistry worked. Tell us a little bit about what your feelings were as far as how the chemistry worked with the new guys, kind of with the guys that have already been here for a little bit. Because we had a lot of new guys, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, we're really pleased as a staff. We do, like you said, have a lot of new guys, and we have a lot of young freshmen playing too. We're a mix from 9th grade to 12th grade out on the field at all times. And sometimes in practice, the first couple weeks of fall camp, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. Signals, guys not doing the right thing. The scrimmage the week before, we had a lot of just busted routes and just different stuff. And so the game, actually, I felt like the young men, with the pressure of the real game in front of a real crowd on both sides, they performed, executed really well. I'm not going to say flawlessly, right? But there was no delay of games. We had a lot less bust on routes. I think that our no illegal procedure penalties on some of our dummy calls. We had no false starts.
Nobody lined up wrong.
Nobody lined up wrong. We had a couple turnovers, but one was late. With the second group, we did have a busted route on that play, and then we had a trick play.
Wasn't quite tricky enough.
It wasn't quite tricky enough, and so anyway. But beyond that, I just felt like it was a smooth night of operation across the board.
Yeah. Well, and before we take a look at last week's game, we'll go through those stats. I just want to give a shout out to the fans. I mean, even with the threat of rain, because everybody, thought how many people are going to come. It might rain. I mean, people thought it might rain. But we had a packed.
I guess it did rain a little bit.
Yeah, but we had a packed house. I mean, it was and it was humid. It was sticky.
It was really sticky.
But we had a packed house. So shout out to the fans once again. The Rejoice Eagles fans showing up like you always do, and so we appreciate you doing that. We're going to look at a quick recap of last week's game, and we'll talk about. We're going to say freshmen a lot tonight.
Over and over and over.
Camion, and I'll tell you, Coach. I don't know if you knew this or not, but 2 weeks before the season started, he got his official adoption papers, and so he told us he wanted to be known as Compton Nero. So right. Camion Compton Nero. Like I say, he started the game off with that 52-yard kickoff return, and then the Eagles went up 7-0 when Cale marched the Eagles down the field, and he scored a 1-yard TD. And of course, the PAT was good by Andrus. It was 14-0 after almost scoring on the opening drive. No good one. He almost did the scoring on that opening drive, but he did score on a 29-yard run to make it 14-0 after the conversion by Andrus. Went up 21-0 when Marley hooked up with. Okay, I'm going to say ZZ. You're going to have to help me with his last. We'll get it here pretty soon, but you pronounce it.
Okwu Fluazy.
Okwu Fluazy.
And I probably just watched it. So.
Yeah. Okay. So that's why we call him Z.
Z.
Yeah, I still like Z.
So Z had a really nice 65-yard touchdown pass from Marley, and eluding several Jaguar defenders. And once he got out in the open, it was just like, you're not going to catch me. And they didn't. That ended the first quarter scoring. Second quarter, you had Cale. He opened up the second half with a 4-yard run to stretch that lead out to 28-0 after the PAT by Andrus. The Jaguars finally got on the board to make it 28-7 when their quarterback, who did all their scoring, Moses, scored on a 5-yard run, and the PAT was good. But the Eagles answered right back and went up by 28 again when Luke Schaefer took the kickoff return and went 79 yards. Our big player of the game went 79 yards for the score, and again, PAT by Andrus was good.
You want to know something funny about that big play thing, though? Every time we thought we had a big play, we'd get another one.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be a big play, too.
Well, we thought the very first
play of the game.
with
well, it's sold right there.
Camion taking it. Yeah, we thought, how are you going to pass? Beat that? Well, there were several.
Well, yeah.
It was 42-7 after the defense got in on the scoring when Z returned an interception, got in on it again with a 31-yard interception return to close out the scoring in the third quarter. PAT was again good by Andrus. Noah got on the board again when Moses ran it in from 7 yards out, but the PAT failed.
Which, by the way, I thought he was a really good athlete.
He really was.
I thought he had really good control, and a lot of the things he was trying really seemed to work well. It didn't get a lot of help from his receivers.
Right.
But,
yeah, he was.
But he really seemed like quite a player.
And when he got out in the open and ran, he was hard to bring down. And he was a load. Yeah. I mean, he was a big boy.
Yep.
Then the Eagles got that score right back when Cale hooked up with freshman Tristan Willis for a 34-yard scoring strike, and the PAT failed. What I love about that, if you go back and look at and I know you mentioned it or several people did on Facebook this week, that when he hooked up with him, Cale was just as pumped as what Tristan was, ran down the field and wanted to be the first one to congratulate him. I mean, that was really good to see that this senior down here is down there. Cale's a senior.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this senior taking this freshman and saying, I mean, just really was, and you could tell it was just genuine excitement.
Well, people don't realize this, but when Cale was 5 and 6 years old and Tristan's got his diaper hanging, he's 2 years old, they're chasing each other around the locker room at Victory Christian.
Right, because, by the way, that's Coach Willis' son, so coach's son to coach's son on the hookup there. So, yeah, but that was really cool to see. It was 48-20 after Moses, once again for the Jaguars, scored on a 5-yard run to close out the scoring for the Jaguars. But not wanting the Jaguars to be the last one to score, Holt Wilson, another freshman, picked off the Jaguar pass and returned it for the house for a TD. And I think it was like I forget how long, it was like 39 or
Holt.
I think it was 58. I was going to say it's closer to 60.
Yeah, 58-yard return for the touchdown and to make 55-20 after Carson Losey got in and kicked the extra point. Tell me about that. Was that just to work because you need a backup too?
We need a backup, and he's a senior, and he's asked me a couple times. He ran up to me in the game and said, "Hey, can I get it? Can I get it?" And those are great opportunities to get a little bit of experience. I said, "Yeah, go get it." You know, so he made it.
And that's the key. He made it. Passing, you had Cale was 13 of 16 for 190 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kenyon Terwilliger, another freshman, was 4 for 5 for 63 yards, and then Camion Compton Nero, another freshman, was 3 for 7 for 37 yards. Did have the 2 interceptions. One, like you said, was I think the busted route, and then the one was a trick play that just didn't work out. Receiving, you had Z with 3 catches, 94 yards, and a touchdown. He was battling Cale for the offensive player of the game. We gave it to Cale just because, ran for 2 TDs, passed for 2 TDs. Like we said, 190-something yards passing, and we'll get into his rushing. But then he had Alex Yorman, a freshman, 2 catches, 56 yards. Freshman Tristan Willis, 134 yards and a touchdown. Neil Lieber had 2 for 28 yards, and 8 other players with at least 1 catch. 8, not even counting the guys I just named. 8 other players with at least 1 catch. And for you counting at home, that's 12. Yes, 12 different players that caught a pass, and overall 20 receptions by 12 different players for 290 yards for an average of 14.5 yards per reception, 2 TDs. Coach, to me, that's just remarkable, and it's definitely the definition of spreading the ball around.
Yeah, it is. It's exciting that we've got that many kids involved. It was a game that we were able to get some kids in as well. But, like you said, there's so many kids stepped up from Camion's opening kickoff return. ZZ, a couple of times he touched the ball. I guess the 3 times he's going to be something to deal with. He's going to be a problem this year.
He was one step away.
He dropped the tunnel screen that he would have probably scored as well, and then he would have gotten the offensive player of the game.
Yeah.
And I told him it was all in his hands. It was in his
blew
hands.
It.
And when he
you
dropped
could
that
have
ball,
this card could have gone to you, but no.
It definitely could have. But you go back to Kenyon later picked off a ball. Tristan Willis's touchdown. Holt Wilson.
Are you getting in on the defense with me already?
Well, I know.
Are you still in my thunder?
I'm talking about the scores, but there's going to be games where, like, Holt Wilson was quiet, right? He's going to have a big game this year where he's the main guy, right? Blake Witten's going to have a game where he's the main guy. Neil Lieber's going to have a game where he's the main guy. That's what's awesome about this team right now is there's just a lot of kids out there that can make things happen.
Well, yeah, and I know this is going to be near and dear to your heart because we're going to talk about rushing, and that's part of the O-line's job is to open up those holes. In the rushing department, you had the Alaska move-in. You just talked about him, junior Noah Goodwin. He had 4 rushes, 42 yards, and a touchdown, and was that close. And of course, Cale got the glory on that one. But, he was a foot away from getting a second touchdown, or actually the first of the game. Cale ran the ball 5 times for 38 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then freshman Jason Mojica had 4 rushes for 27 yards. And, yes, I did say freshman again, along with 5 other players who ran the ball. So Rejoice ran the ball 24 times for 121 yards, 3 touchdowns, but once again, 8 different players that ran the ball. And I honestly don't remember a game seeing so many players being involved. And these weren't mop-up duties for the most part. It wasn't really mop-up duty till late in the third quarter. Right. These were guys that you were just calling their number, freshman, junior, senior, sophomore, didn't matter, saying go do your job. And so you had to depend on your line to open the holes or sustain the blockings for the passing game.
Yeah. Well, and in 121 yards, it's not a big wow number, but we average over 5 yards carry. It's pretty good anytime you can do that. And I think going back to the scrimmage, between the scrimmage and the first game, we improved a ton up front. And especially we talk about down there on the goal line. I kind of challenged them from the scrimmage down on the goal line down there in Pawhuska. We weren't real physical. We didn't execute real well. We got in, but it was just a little too tougher than it should have been. And we really executed very well down there on the goal line. Every time we were there, we really caved down the front side, pulled and kicked and pulled through, and did a very nice job executing down there. So that was very exciting to see. There was just a lot cleaned up from that scrimmage. going into week 1, and then hope to see that kind of progress moving forward next week.
I like to see the guys when they're sustaining their blocks and they're doing it with their feet.
Yeah,
they were moving because they didn't have size on a lot of these guys.
Right.
They were undersized compared to some people who had. So.
We're probably never going to be the biggest ones up front when we go in there. So, you've got to be really good with your technique, and you've got to have a great punch, great hands, and keep your feet buzzing.
Keep your feet buzzing.
When your feet stop buzzing, you're in trouble, especially when you're when you're undersized. And we've got to be creative with what we're doing offensively that can fit what our kids can do, creating angles, being creative to help them succeed and be successful. We're not going to just a lot of times probably line up and run in and just smash mouth football being undersized, but we can do some other things that help give us an advantage.
Give you some angles for sure.
Yes.
Something I was thinking about, we talked about this, I think it was a couple of years ago, about the number of weapons on the team, and whenever you have distribution like this for the ball and people perform,
who are you going to cover?
Who are you going to cover? Yeah. Who are you going to key on?
Yeah.
Okay, fine, go ahead. We're gonna, we'll move over here. I think is that an advantage? You think?
It really is. I mean, we feel like we've got the kids on the outside. Noah's game plan, I really felt like after it's all said and done and we went in the office. I mean, they're going to bring 6 and 7. They never had less than 6 in the box. Never could catch them with 5. Most of the time they blitz both their overhangs all night. They're going to bring 7. You're going to have to beat us throwing the ball. Well, we've got some kids on the outside that if we can continue to do that, and then eventually I think maybe some teams will displace the box, and then go double some guys or get more exotic in their zone coverages, right? Well, then if we get numbers in the box, I hope that we can have some favorable advantages there as well.
That's when the technique will step in.
Yes,
at that
absolutely.
Point.
Yeah. When we get that 5-man box and go 5-on-5,
we're going to make some yards.
Let's go.
and I think Coach Willis had another fact about you that not.
Fact is a loose term there.
Oh, yeah. Fun fact, Coach Riley was very close to being a professional before getting into coaching.
We have a game coaches play on Thursday, and we call it bowling, but it's with the football. It's just kind of a Thursday tradition. We did it when I was over at Union, and he's just a little salty because he didn't win today.
And Coach Willis doesn't know this, but we're going to have an open mic night one of these nights for for a comedy stand-up.
He's our number one.
That's right. Mark, I think you've got some defensive stats over there.
We had all kinds of. Again, on the defensive side, it was another one. We just had so many folks get involved with play, and we didn't have one guy stand out. We didn't have two guys stand out. We had a lot of guys up and down the list. We had literally sheets of numbers of guys that we're tracking tackles on. But, we ended up to pick a few guys for our player of the game. We ended up with Cade Schaefer. Had 11 tackles, 3 of them solo. And he was just around the ball, seemed like all night long. And he was on both sides of the ball. Actually spent quite a bit of time doing things on the offensive side too. But, again, it was an outstanding performance. Max Eichmann, 7 tackles, 3 solo, 1 for a loss. Carter Cree, 4 tackles, 3 solos. Jet McCain, 3 solos and a pass breakup. Camion on the defensive side of the ball, 3 solo tackles, 1 for loss and an interception, of course. And then Z had 1 tackle and a pass breakup and an interception return for a TD, as you were saying a minute ago. Holt Wilson, that was a return on a kickoff return, wasn't it, for a TD on that? Yep. And then Wade White had 2 tackles and a sack. Jason Wahika had a tackle for a loss. And just like on the offense, like we were saying, 20 different players involved in making plays.
20. Yeah. 20 guys in on tackles.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's pretty incredible. I mean, it really is. And what's nice is having that depth, especially early. Like you said earlier, it was really humid, muggy, and it really, really helps for us to be able to rotate guys in. And honestly, there's sets that I don't really care who's in. I mean, you really don't care who's in as a coach, and we want everybody to be able to play. Now, it's not going to be everybody, right? But there's a large number that can get on the field, and there's not much of a letdown.
Yeah, 100%. Past players' mom, I'm guessing here, Raquel Mulkey, saying this is the year for the Eagles for a championship. Of course, that's the goal every year. This looks as good as any.
Yep.
Can't give or get out of here tonight without giving a shout out to our special teams. Duncan Andrus, I mean, we were all marveled last year by Maverick Price, and we should have been. I mean, the guy had a leg, but Duncan Andrus put it every kickoff, not just in the end zone, but just about every one of them through the end zone, with several of them out of the end zone before they ever came down.
Both directions.
The very first one was out of without wind. The very first one was out of the end zone.
And over the lights.
Probably a good 20 feet above the light stands. I mean, just incredible. He was also 6 for 7 on PATs. And then Compton Nero started things off with that first, with his first touch on the 42-yard kickoff return to begin the game. But not to be outdone, our big player of the game, Luke Schaefer, had a 79-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. And one of the things that Mark and I we kept looking at each other and looking and listening. Okay, yeah, because usually you can come into a season and you know the guys' names. Yeah, and there might be 3 or 4 new guys you got to learn. We're looking down at, he's a freshman. Yeah, he's a freshman. Yeah, we were just over and over we just couldn't get over the number of freshmen that were playing. 2 quarterbacks rushing and passing, 2 more freshmen rushing, 5 freshmen receiving the ball, and on defense you had, I believe, a freshman in on tackles, including Camion's opening. You had 17 freshmen involved on plays, and I just want, as a coach, you've been coaching a few years. Have you ever had that many freshmen? Again, I'm not talking about mop-up duty. I'm talking about quality minutes beginning of the game to maybe the third quarter. Have you ever had that many freshmen actually come in and make that type of impact?
No, I've never had this many. I think 3 years ago with our senior class now, we had about 3 freshmen getting playing time in that varsity at the very beginning of the varsity season. And that was a special group the year before in junior high. Well, our freshman group this year was a special group last year in junior high. And they went 8-0 in the Pinnacle Conference, which is good football, the private schools. And so we knew coming into this season with that group that they're going to play. A lot of them are going to play. And, as a coach, it's exciting. It's exciting. But we also got to figure out how to keep everyone together, because that group that's seniors now, you go back 4 years ago and we had 18 eighth graders. And I think right now we have 10 seniors, right? Yeah. And life happens. People get different jobs and this and that, and you can't control everything. But this is a special group, and so, we just want to keep them together. And then when we knew, along with the redistricting and realignment and dropping down to Class A, it is easier to get some freshmen on the field in Class A football than when you get, every class up. It's just a little bit more difficult. So, no, we feel blessed to have these guys, and we think that's going to be a great run for their class.
So having that many skilled players, how hard is it to keep everybody happy? Because everybody's going to want to play. So how hard is that to juggle that and say, okay, because nobody wants to, when you're this good and you're this skilled, you don't want to sit on the bench.
Right. No, we talk about unity all the time. It's one of our core values. It's our second core value. We talk about selflessness and oneness. I read a book this summer that I shared a lot with the guys throughout the summer called The One Truth by John Gordon, and just the power of oneness and being together, and would share excerpts on that, and continually talking about looking at other people and acknowledging other people and celebrating other people's wins and victories. We had a young man, Wade White, who's a sophomore tailback for us. He did First Things First on Tuesday this week, and his First Things First, he plays running back, and he opened up talking about how good Noah Goodwin is. Awesome. And how he would love to be the first, the guy, the starter, but how Noah Goodwin has earned it, and that Noah Goodwin deserves that.
And he's the new move-in.
And he talked about Jason Mojica and the great runs he had the other night, and how he's a freshman and how he's a slasher and runs hard, and I've got to work hard because Jason's bringing it, right? And so Wade's whole First Things First was really just other-centered and other-focused, and not about me.
Just like Casey's saying there, we above me.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's a slogan you guys, a mantra that you guys use.
Yep. Yeah, we talk about that. We greater than me, the greater than sign, and we got to keep doing that. You got to keep putting that out in front of them, because the flesh in life wants to get selfish. It's all about jealousy and what's best for me and gimme, and you start getting focused on the wrong things, and that causes discord. That causes discord and disunity, and you know what? We're in total control of that. We have enough adversity and enough we're going to face throughout this season that we have to battle, that we can't control the officials, we can't control the weather, we can't control how good or bad our opponent is, we can't control if the bus doesn't go, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? But we can control our attitude. Mm-hmm. We are in control if we're going to be a jealous, bitter group or not. And so that's why we try to get, and hopefully that's a life lesson that if some of these young men can learn it now, they'll be, members of organizations and companies down the road and be great team players.
I think we got a lot of kids that are just unselfish. They're just unselfish, and you see a lot of kids celebrating, the successes of others, and that's unbelievable to see that.
And we've seen kids. I mean, a lot of these kids come up in the Rejoice schools,
Right.
the Christian schools, atmosphere and everything. We've seen kids that have moved in from public schools, and they don't get it, and they never do get it, and they don't fit, and they're gone after all because they don't understand, or they don't quite grasp the we above me attitude, because that's not what the world teaches. The world teaches, I'm number one, I need to take care of me first, and then I'll take care of you if I've got time.
Well, and that is very true, and thankfully the ones we have got this year, and there's a lot of prayer in this, and we have a great admissions process, but we've got some good fits right now with some kids that Kenyon Terwilliger, a freshman, Max Eichmann coming in. We had a kid named Ben Liniger that just came in. Noah Goodwin, from Alaska. I feel like we really have hit the jackpot, with the kids that we've got. The Lord has blessed us with the ones that have came in and bought in, because you're right, Bill. It's not always the case when you've been from the outside and not knowing our culture.
Yeah, 100%. Well, let's take a look at tomorrow night's game. A familiar foe. I think we've played them the last 3 years in a row, or 4 years in a row, maybe.
I believe 4.
Yeah, and I think we're 2-2. They beat us here. We beat them there. So we got a rubber game tomorrow night. Class 3A, 3-ranked Cassia Hall. The Commandos, they come into tomorrow night's game coming off of a big victory over one of their big rivals, Holland Hall, 29-28. They were trailing at one time 28-16 in the third quarter. And Coach, they were able to come back because their tailback, Darby, he's a load. I remember him 2 years ago down there. He just was he was hard to we won the game, but man, he was a hard guy to bring down. And then of course you've got their quarterback. I mean, he can really pass the ball. If you look at their touchdown, he was 19 of 37, 2 interceptions, but 3 touchdowns, all to his wide receiver, Mullen. And obviously, going to be a step up from last week to go down to off around 21st and Utica to play the Commandos. And a lot of this, we talked about, you and I did before we got off air, or before we got on air, about the size differential. And you even said that just a little bit ago, we're not always going to be the biggest. Well, that's probably going to be the case come tomorrow night. What's your strategy? I'll ask you first before I get to Coach Marley. What's your strategy on being able to get holes and sustain blocks to be able to get the offense going?
Well, I think, like I said earlier, you got to know what you have. Okay, and what we have, we're very quick. Okay, so what are we going to do to help try to take advantage of that? And it's all about creating angles. How are they going to line up to this front formation? How are they going to line up to this formation? Where can we be successful based on the kids that we have, the type of kids we have? And so when you put your kids in a situation where they can be successful, and then you combine that with the skill kids that we have and the speed we have, we can do some good things. And so we're going to try to do that and see what happens.
And then, of course, Coach Marley, on the defensive side, what are we going to be able to do? Because obviously they've got some skilled players. They've got Darby, they've got Mullen, their big wide receiver, and obviously their quarterback has an arm. What do we do to try to, keep them in check and able to, play with them?
Yeah, I mean, we've got to be simple, and we've got to be able to run to the football. We've got to, don't outsmart, don't outthink ourselves. We don't have any busted coverages, busted assignments. They're very good at throwing the ball. They love to throw it deep. He's got several weapons. The Nathan kid, number 18, is a great outside receiver. The Lai kid in the slot, another outstanding receiver. The Rampy kid, the other outside, number 14, he's good too. And they've got the Stanford kid, number 20 or number 2, 21, 81. They've got depth too. I mean, they've got depth.
Well, there's a reason they're highly ranked in 3A.
And they're a good spread team. Coach Medina's been a power football team, an downhill football coach for years, and he sold out to go into the spread a couple years ago. And I knew when he was going to do that, then he's not going to do that unless he's going to do it right.
No part way.
No. And so he's done that right, and they're trying to sprinkle a little bit of their power game in. along the way. But and their tailback Darby, he's he's tough.
He's a load.
Oh, he's a load. And then their quarterback, Barrett Mullen, he has a cannon on him, and so he's being recruited and having people looking at him. I've had college coaches call me about him, so we better be ready to play.
Yeah, and actually I got that reverse. Mullen threw 3 touchdown passes to Nathan, the other wide receiver you're talking about. Well, folks, it's going to be a gorgeous night tomorrow night. The temperatures are going to be falling, and so travel on down to 169 or go down Highway 75, however you get to 24th and Utica, thereabouts, 25th and Utica, and get over to Cassia Hall. Let's have a great crowd tomorrow night because it's going to take the 5th man tomorrow night. Again, good ball club that we're going to be facing, but it should be a lot of fun. So, Mark, any last thoughts?
No, I think just everybody come out for the game. Cash is going to have a crowd there too. So let's get everybody down there and really, bring the house to them.
Yep. Coach Riley?
Well, no, I think I agree. Come on down, watch the game, and they're going to be disciplined. They're going to play tough, physical. That's just who they are. And then personally for me, their defensive line coach was my high school head football coach.
Oh, no joke.
Yeah,
boy.
So
wow.
I never did think I'd get to coach against him. So I'm looking. It's kind of O-line versus D-line there. So
you'd sure like to go.
I would.
You'd sure like to go shake his hand at the end of the game with a big smile on your face.
With the W, yes.
He didn't mention, but that was at Collinsville. Well, I'm a little older than him, so a few years earlier than that, he used to be at Coweta, and he was my coach when I was in high school. One of my coaches. Yes.
Wow.
That's true.
Wow. So, any last thoughts, Coach Marley?
No, I don't think there's a chance of rain tomorrow, right?
No.
Actually, humidity's down.
And there's also a PF Chang's down there. So
real close.
That.
There's a lot of stuff there.
There's
You
a lot
can
of stuff
swear.
there.
Yeah, a lot of stuff that you can swear. Well, from a wingman, Mark Kirk, Coach Marley and Coach Riley, and, of course, our engineer, Todd Whitten, doing it at the controls. I'm Bill Bush, and you've been watching. Oh, okay, we got to Okwufuluwezi. Z. We're staying with Z.
Yeah, that's too many.
Yeah. I think I was really close to that.
You were really close to that.
No, I don't think so.
But you've been you were watching the Rejoice Christian Eagles Coaches Show on this Rejoice Athletics TV channel on YouTube. We want to say good night, God bless, and go Eagles.